They called them the Blue Ants and the Gray Ants. Not officially, of course. Those were code names whispered between soldiers in the dark, scrawled on maps that would be burned the moment they were memorized. But the names stuck because they captured something essential. The Blue Ants were relentless, disciplined, a perfect swarm that moved as one. The Gray Ants were faster, more cunning, shaped by a lifetime of survival in the shadows. And for years, they had been locked in a secret war that the rest of the world refused to see. Imagine this: a city, once prosperous, now a labyrinth of broken glass and bullet-pocked concrete. The streets are silent, but not peaceful. It's the silence of a predator holding its breath. Two men, one from the Blue Hive, one from the Gray, are hunting each other in the same abandoned apartment block. They don't know each other's names. They don't know each other's faces. But they know the other is there. A single misplaced footstep, a cough, a reflection in a window. That's all it takes. How do you fight an enemy you can't see? How do you win a war that officially doesn't exist? The Blue Ants believed in the power of the collective. They were the product of a system that valued obedience above all else. Their training was brutal, designed to strip away individuality until only the mission remained. They moved in coordinated waves, overwhelming their targets with sheer numbers and unwavering logic. To them, the Gray Ants were not soldiers. They were terrorists, criminals, a disease that needed to be eradicated. But the Gray Ants saw themselves differently. They were the immune system of a dying body. They had no central command, no grand headquarters. They operated in cells of 3 or 4, often not knowing the identities of the others in the network. Their strength was in their unpredictability. They could be anyone: a shopkeeper, a student, a grandmother. They didn't fight for territory. They fought for an idea. And ideas, as any soldier will tell you, are the hardest things to kill. The conflict escalated in a way that felt inevitable, like a storm gathering on a cloudless day. The Blue Ants launched a massive sweep operation, sealing off entire districts. They used facial recognition, drone surveillance, and informants. They were methodical. They were patient. They believed that if they applied enough pressure, the Gray Ants would eventually crack. But the Gray Ants had a weapon the Blue Ants never anticipated. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a sniper rifle. It was a story. A single whispered story that spread through the city faster than any virus. The story claimed that a high-ranking Blue Ant commander had been feeding information to the enemy. It was a lie, of course. A beautiful, poisonous lie. But it was perfectly timed. And it sowed a seed of doubt that grew into a forest of paranoia. Now, the Blue Ants started turning on each other. Trust, their greatest asset, became their greatest weakness. The commander was arrested, interrogated, broken. He confessed to crimes he never committed simply to make the pain stop. And in that moment, the Blue Ants lost more than a leader. They lost their illusion of invincibility. The Gray Ants saw their opening. They didn't attack with guns. They attacked with whispers. They flooded the streets with propaganda, turning the city's own anger against its occupiers. They made the Blue Ants look not like a disciplined force, but like a terrified mob lashing out at shadows. The world began to watch. And when the world watches, the rules of the game change forever. But the Blue Ants were not finished. They had one more move. A desperate, dangerous move that would force the Gray Ants out of the shadows and into the light. They were about to cross a line that could not be uncrossed, and the Gray Ants, for all their cunning, had no idea what was coming. The Blue Ants made their move at dawn. They didn't send soldiers, they sent an invitation, a public address, broadcast across every screen in the city. The Blue Ant commander, the one they had broken, stood at a podium, his face bruised, his voice trembling. And he spoke words that froze the Gray Ants in their tracks. He confessed to everything: the lies, the betrayal, the secret alliance with the enemy. But this time the confession was real. Because the Blue Ants had made him an offer he couldn't refuse. They promised to spare his family, and in exchange, he would give them the Gray Ants' greatest secret. He would reveal the location of their hidden command center, the place where the Whispers were born, the heart of the resistance. The Grey Ants heard the broadcast. They saw the fear in each other's eyes. They knew their commander had been taken. They knew their sanctuary was compromised. And for the first time, they felt something they had never felt before. Panic. They scrambled to evacuate, to burn documents, to disappear into the cracks of the city. But the Blue Ants were already moving, not with an army, with a single drone, a tiny, silent machine that floated above the suspected location, watching, waiting. It didn't drop a bomb. It dropped a signal that unlocked every phone, every computer, every device in a 3-block radius. And in that moment, the Grey Ants' greatest weapon, their anonymity, was stripped away. Their faces appeared on screens, their names, their families, their hiding spots, all laid bare for the world to see. The Blue Ants had won. Not by force, by exposure. They had turned the Grey Ants' own game against them. The shadows had become a spotlight, and the Grey Ants, once masters of the invisible war, were now the most visible targets on the planet. But here's the thing about stories. They don't end. They evolve. Because even as the Grey Ants were rounded up, even as their network crumbled, one of them escaped. A single ant carrying a single seed of a new story. A story that would one day grow into a forest again. And as she disappeared into the sewers beneath the city, she didn't look back. She didn't mourn. She whispered 3 words to herself, words that would become the anthem of the next generation. We are everywhere. The Blue Ants thought they had crushed the resistance, but they had only scattered the seeds. And seeds, my friend, have a way of finding cracks in the concrete. They have a way of growing in the dark. The war between the blue and the gray was never about territory. It was about belief, and belief cannot be killed. It can only be buried. And what is buried always, eventually, rises. So the question isn't who won. The question is, who is listening? Because the next whisper is already on its way, and it's coming for you.